Welcome everyone. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here for today's explainer. We're going to unpack a really structured, highly practical framework for achieving mental peace, known as the happiness meditation method. If you're the kind of person who loves breaking down abstract spiritual concepts into totally usable everyday tools, well, you're in the exact right place. Let's get right into it.
So the source material we're looking at today is a fascinating book called The Secret of Meditation by Ryuho Okawa. Specifically, we're zoning in on Chapter 4. What's super notable about this text isn't just that it offers advice. It gives us a literal, logical roadmap for mental control. We're going to trace an arc that starts with intensely protecting our own inner sanctuary, and then it scales all the way up to completely expanding our cosmic perspective. Here's exactly how we're going to break this down today. 1. The inner sanctuary. 2. Organizing worries. 3. Building the shield. 4. Releasing others. And finally, 5. Expanding perspective.
Okay, starting with Part 1, the inner sanctuary, creating boundaries.
Now take a look at the striking contrast we have here. In modern society, right, there's this massive emphasis on empathy, on being totally open and feeling everything super deeply. But the author actually proposes something deeply contrarian, the intentional ability to not feel. And I want to be clear, the text frames this not as apathy, but as an absolutely crucial active defense mechanism. When you're constantly bombarded by worldly noise or other people's stress, your spiritual defense is actively choosing not to absorb it. You really need that capacity to just turn off the emotional receiver.
So how do we actually achieve that ability to not feel? Well, the source outlines some really practical tactics. You have to actively protect your mind's environment. This means deliberately carving out dedicated alone time and having the sheer discipline to avoid unnecessary contact with others when you're feeling drained. The book actually uses this great metaphor of retreating to a cave, finding that quiet space where you can intentionally block out negative mental waves. By creating this physical and mental distance, you're literally giving the ripples in your mind the time and space they need to naturally calm down.
Moving on to Part 2, Organizing Worries, the Mental Sort.
This is where the author introduces a super pragmatic dichotomy for dealing with daily anxieties. Basically, when a worry pops into your head, you immediately sort it into one of two buckets. Bucket 1, actionable worries. These are the things you can solve yourself through direct action. They require your immediate focus and problem-solving skills. Bucket 2, unactionable worries. These are the problems that literally only the passage of time will fix. For these, the required action is intentionally letting go. Applying this mental sort is just an incredibly effective way to eliminate the paralyzing effect of anxiety. It completely stops you from wasting your energy on things that time has to fix for you anyway.
And the text really drives this point home. It states that evaluating and swiftly categorizing your daily worries isn't just some life hack, it is the ultimate mental training. The sheer speed at which you can recognize a worry as unactionable and then intentionally switch your mindset away from it, that's presented as the exact measure of your mental control. Let's look at Part 3, Building the Shield, Accumulating Success.
So how do we keep from being overwhelmed by the unknown? The author outlines an incredibly grounded three-step approach for this. Step 1, face your daily challenges head-on, honestly, no matter how minor they seem. Step 2 is really the core of this strategy. You deliberately accumulate small, everyday successful experiences. Did you handle a tough conversation well? Did you successfully categorize a worry today? Boom, log it as a win. Finally, Step 3. You transform those accumulated successes into unshakable self-confidence. The source text emphasizes that this steady diet of small, everyday victories acts as a literal psychological shield. When an unknown problem pops up, your brain looks at your track record of wins and just says, hey, I've handled things before, I'm going to handle this too.
Which brings us to Part 4, Releasing Others, the Principle of Forgiveness.
This perfectly illustrates the author's highly pragmatic approach to holding grudges. Think of your mind as an absolute kingdom, where you are the sole ruler. You have complete dominion there, right? But here is the hard truth. You have absolutely zero jurisdiction over the kingdoms of other people. The text argues that because we can barely understand our own complexities, let alone perfectly understand or control anyone else, holding on to anger is fundamentally illogical. So forgiveness isn't just framed as some lofty moral ideal here. It's literally the logical path for a ruler who just wants peace in their own domain.
Building directly on that idea, the framework outlines exactly how to cut these mental attachments. First up, you have to completely shatter the illusion of perfect mutual understanding. People are going to misunderstand you, and you are going to misunderstand them. Accepting that is a huge step. Second,
Realize that holding a grudge doesn't actually punish the other person, it just creates massive internal dissonance in your own carefully protected mind. By letting go of the desire to control how other people feel or act, you're practicing a kind of tolerance that the author says directly facilitates your own spiritual and mental growth. Basically, you forgive to free yourself.
And that leads us to our final section, Part 5, Expanding Perspective, Micro to Macro.
Now, the author notes something crucial here. All this mental control and self-realization shouldn't just end with selfish ego building. It's really not just about making yourself comfortable. The framework suggests that true self-realization actually involves aligning your personal growth with a grander, universal purpose, which the text refers to as God's ideal. It's about becoming a fully functioning part of a much larger whole. And to do this, the text introduces a really powerful visualization technique.
First, I want you to visualize the extreme micro perspective, exactly as it's described in the source. Picture a single person. They're sitting inside a small room. That room is inside a building, which is tucked away in the sprawling city of Tokyo, which itself sits on the small island nation of Japan. This incredibly microscopic, zoomed-in view of human existence, that represents exactly how our daily worries usually feel. Immediate, narrow, and totally all-consuming.
But the absolutely crucial point is what happens next. You take that zoomed-in view, and you violently pull the camera back to the extreme macro perspective. Suddenly, that island, that entire planet is just a tiny Earth floating in the unimaginably vast expanse of the great universe, resting in the hands of the divine. The author calls this realizing the universal self. And in the face of this massive cosmic scale, all those anxieties back in that tiny room, they completely lose their heavy, suffocating power.
The ultimate key to achieving profound mental tranquility in this whole meditation method is learning how to fluidly oscillate between these two perspectives. You acknowledge the micro, you sort your worries, you build your shield, you do the real work in your small room. But the absolute second you feel trapped by those small-scale worldly anxieties, you intentionally shift to the macro. You connect with the infinite universe, acknowledging that while you are small, you have a deeply purposeful place within this grand design.
It is such a comprehensive framework, and it shifts the control entirely back into your hands. By protecting your space, sorting your thoughts, accumulating those small wins, releasing illogical anger, and ultimately scaling your perspective, you literally architect your own peace. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought today. Right now, are you trapped in the micro of your daily worries, or do you have the discipline to zoom out to the macro of your higher existence? The choice is entirely yours.